What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? Z-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Monday night. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. So good to have you in fresh off of day 5 of Buffalo Bills training camp, the first practice with pads on. Plenty to dive into, including the long list of injuries the Bills are currently dealing with in training camp. We'll touch on that, including the big names on the list that seem to be dealing with lingering issues that have been a problem not only recently, but in the past. We'll talk about what we saw out on the field, what we've continued to see on the field from certain individuals who are really starting to make their presence felt with these Buffalo Bills early on here in training camp. We'll also talk about a new addition to the 99 overall club in Madden. One of our very own has finally become one of the best players in the league, according to those over at EA Sports. But let's start this evening with the injuries that are currently bugging the Buffalo Bills. We're used to it by now, Bills fans. We're used to injuries coming along, biting the Buffalo Bills. They've had that injury bug for some time, it's felt like, especially on the defensive side of the ball. We feel comfortable with the depth that they have going into the year. But of course, this time of year is when you start to get amped up, get ready, get your feet underneath you for the season ahead. And the Bills' list of injuries right now is certainly longer than you'd like it to be. I always take these with a grain of salt during training camp, because I would have to imagine that an injury that might sideline you from day 5 of training camp might not be an injury that would sideline you for a game. I think that that's probably safe to say. You're going to take far more precaution during training camp with a lot of these injuries than you would in situations where each and every week you got a game coming up, a lot on the line. Can you power through it? If you can't, that typically means it's serious. If you can, every week these guys are getting banged up. That's the nature of the league. You talk to anybody in this league, they're going to say that the injury rate's pretty much 100%. It's just a matter of what your tolerance is, how bad the injury is, and your ability to play through it. Obviously, some are worse than others, and you can't play through it. But I always take it with a grain of salt at this time of year, just because I would be much more willing to sit myself out or have the training staff excuse me from practice and at this point of the year than at any other point once we get into late August and beyond. But the list is still longer than you'd like, despite the fact that maybe some of them aren't serious. The list came out today with the Buffalo Bills players that did not practice this Monday morning. According to Sal Capaccio, put out the list before practice this morning. Here are the current Bills players that did not participate in the first practice featuring pads: Dorian Williams, Tyrell Shavers, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Curtis Samuel, Terrell Bernard, Elijah Moore, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, T. Bass, Caden Prather, and Spencer Brown. 3 names on that list pop out to me more than others. And ironically enough, I was scrolling Thighdoc's Twitter account to get an idea where he was at in terms of these injuries. Of course, go follow ThighDoc if you don't already. I'm sure the majority of you do, but no better place to get your injury updates for the Buffalo Bills than ThighDoc. And anytime a list like this comes out, I immediately head over to ThighDoc's page, see what he's saying. And the 3 names that popped out to me were the 3 names that seemed to pop out to ThighDoc. And it's because it's the 3 names that seem to have the same lingering injury. One of them hasn't had this injury in the past, or at least hasn't been an issue, but it's an injury that you circle because of how crucial the position is. And it's an area in which you look at that injury, and more often than not, it's considered to be one of those injuries that is tougher to get rid of, overcome than others. Let's start with the 2 names, though, that pop up right off the bat. Dalton Kincaid. You see Dalton Kincaid not able to practice today due to knee soreness. And there was video that came out from practice that showed that Dalton Kincaid had on a knee brace on that same left knee that had him sidelined for multiple games last year. He suffered that injury to the knee against the Colts in 2024, missed a handful of games after that. And us Bills fans were really excited to have Dalton Kincaid fully rehabbed, ready to rock here in a season that's going to be very crucial, I think, for Dalton Kincaid in being able to prove his value to this team, being able to ascend to that next level we've all been hoping that he can get to. Obviously put on weight this offseason in a good way, looks a lot thicker, looks better in general. And I think the expectations right now for Dalton Kincaid are very high, and a lot of people within the fan base are very excited to see Dalton Kincaid take that next step and feel as though this upcoming year is the opportunity for him to do so. Seeing him in that left knee brace is concerning, whether it's training camp or not. When you see somebody continuously aggravating the exact same injury that has had them sidelined in the past, that's when your eyes open up. And he had that brace on his knee again, the same knee, the left knee that had him sidelined last season. And I think Dalton Kincaid last year, in missing a few games, in not necessarily ascending to that next level that we thought maybe last year would allow him to. I think some of it was excused because of the injuries later on in the season, or the injury later on in the season. To see it flare back up right now, it's discouraging, because I just think that this upcoming year is massive for Dalton Kincaid. You don't want to have any hindrance to that ability to maximize on a massive year. And we're already seeing that the first day with pads on, and of course, only the fifth practice into this training camp, Dalton Kincaid sidelined with the same injury that had him miss multiple weeks in 2024. The problem here is that it's recurring now. This is starting to become an issue that isn't going away. We saw him wear that brace a ton after that injury. I think he had it on for the majority of the offseason going into this. Now you're seeing it pop back up again. It wasn't like he started off camp with this injury featured in days 1 through 4, not able to practice here on Monday. So it's something to certainly monitor. And once again, I think that you're more willing to take precautions in a heightened manner during training camp than you would in the season. If this were week 1, is Dalton Kincaid going to be good to go? That's the thing. We don't know. You'd rather it get out of the way now than in the season. But when you factor in that this was something that kept him out for nearly a month last year, and it's already flaring back up before the Bills even get into, putting the pants on in addition to the uppers in their pads. Not great. I'm really excited to see what Dalton Kincaid's got this upcoming year. I've been on record 100 times saying I just feel like this year is huge. You saw Josh Allen kind of comment on Dalton Kincaid in his presser the other day and saying, hey, I think I left a few touchdowns on the table for Kincaid, and I think the narrative would be different around him if I were to hit him on those. Everybody's looking at Dalton Kincaid to take that next step this upcoming year and really look for him to be Josh Allen's go-to target, or at least one of those X factors that he was drafted to be. And we've seen flashes of that. We just haven't seen it all come together. And in order to have your confidence at its highest, in order to believe in it all coming together the way we'd like to see it, the way, of course, he would like to have it come to fruition, this offense, Joe Brady, Josh Allen in general, health is going to be a major factor within that. And right now on this Monday morning, we see Dalton Kincaid not able to go. And that's certainly something we're going to continue to monitor throughout the month of August here. I know it's only the fifth practice. It's just crazy how quick things go. This upcoming weekend, the Bills have that blue-white game. Next week's the first preseason game of the year. You're off and rolling. I mean, we have a preseason game on Thursday night. The Hall of Fame game is Thursday night. So this is, it's here. It's here. So it's unfortunate to see Dalton Kincaid on that list for the same knee injury that was bothering him a season ago. Spencer Brown, the other one that pops out. He missed practice last week as well, but he was in street clothes. Again, it's that back It's been mentioned that he just continues to have flare-ups within that back, and we've talked about back injuries in general. They just seem to be one of those injuries, whether you're a professional athlete or you're just a pedestrian like the rest of us. The back injuries always seem to be one of those injuries that just do not go away for whatever reason. How many people in your life do you know have a bad back? You've heard it 1,000 times. It just seems to be one of those areas in the body that's tough to heal. And when you do have it bothering you frequently, it doesn't seem to be one of those things that's easily alleviated or just goes away. And Spencer Brown is one of the anchors of this offensive line that has, of course, transcended into one of the league's best and a major asset for this Buffalo Bills offense, really allowing them to go to that next level the last couple of years. What this offensive line has allocated for Josh Allen in this run game has allowed this offense to become what it has. Obviously, it was one of the best in the league simply because of what Josh Allen brings to the table. But with this offensive line's ability to open things up for the run game to where now the Bills are considered to be one of the best rushing teams in the league, this offensive line protecting Josh Allen at an insane degree. Josh Allen, the least sacked quarterback in 2024, which of course translated into this team having the best turnover differential in the league. The Bills turning it over only 8 times in 2024. Josh Allen only 6 interceptions. That has a lot to do with the offensive line. And when you're thinking of the Bills offensive line, you think of 2 names, Dion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. Now, the back injury, having sidelined Spencer Brown now for the, half this camp so far, how much longer does it get to a point where you're just taking precaution? You can't get all the way through this week without Spencer Brown practicing and feel good about it. Initially you see him miss a day last week and all right, yeah, it's flaring up. We'll take it day by day. You go into this week with practice yesterday, today, you're seeing Spencer Brown incapable of getting out there. These are 2 names, Dalton Kincaid, Spencer Brown, 2 of the cornerstones of this offense going into the upcoming year here. Spencer Brown in particular to me, just because I think that things change drastically without Spencer Brown out there on the offensive line. In order for this Buffalo Bills offense to do exactly what they did last year, average 31 points per game, turn the ball over less than really anyone ever has. I mean, what they did last year in that department was incredible. Keep Josh Allen off the ground. Run the ball exceptionally well, pave the way for James Cook to lead the league in touchdowns. You're going to have that offensive line play at the caliber in which it has recently. And the Bills are in a very unique situation where they are bringing back their entire starting unit in that department this upcoming year. With the amount of turnover in the league each and every year, the fact the Bills are bringing back every single body on that offensive line from a year ago, the same offensive line that allowed them to do all of those wonderful things last year. I mean, that's a luxury, and it's a luxury you can't take for granted because that's just not common in this league. To bring back the entirety of a full unit, especially a unit that is as good as the Bills' offensive line has been as of late, massive luxury. And it's one that you absolutely have to capitalize on because, of course, every single year you cannot rely on always having the exact same group, the exact same cohesiveness that allowed you to achieve what you did the year prior. Now, Spencer Brown's one tough dude, one big dude, and one absolutely phenomenal asset for these Bills. And I know for a fact that if he could be out there, he would. And I once again take with a grain of salt this time of year who's not practicing and why. And look, I go back to the analogy of if this was a game week, is he in? We don't know. Could they not be practicing simply because it is practice? It's better to not have it bother you this time of year than a month from now. But when we start to get into these preseason games and beyond, we'll start to get a better idea as to what is truly plaguing a couple of these guys to the point of concern heading into the year. Right now, I can't help but be a little bit concerned about those 2 guys, right? Dalton Kincaid and Spencer Brown, because they're both suffering from injuries that have been problems in the past. And of course, they're 2 of the biggest assets for the Buffalo Bills offense. And their mission to go and repeat what they did last year, which of course puts them in the best position to get the 1 seed, go the distance, do what they've been trying to do for the last decade here. So those are 2 guys we'll, of course, keep an eye on in addition to the rest of that list. The third guy that stands out, of course, is Tyler Bass. Say what you want about Tyler Bass. There were questions looming around him in general and his spot on this team last year, the amount you could trust Tyler Bass. And with those issues in mind, you watch him trot out against the Miami Dolphins and nail a 61-yarder with the game on the line to win it. And Tyler Bass was pretty damn good for these Buffalo Bills last year. There's a reason he's coming back. There's a reason you don't talk as much about the concerns surrounding Tyler Bass that you did this time last year. I think Tyler Bass did a real good job last year in kind of overcoming the questions that were surrounding him. And now you're hearing about an injury. So Tyler Bass dealing with a pelvic injury. That's not one that you hear of very often. I don't hear pelvic injury come up much when I'm hearing about the constant list of injuries that are an unfortunate reality within this league. Every single week, you're constantly getting information on the vast list of guys throughout the entire 32 team league that are suffering an injury. Pelvic doesn't seem to be one that stands out to me in terms of one that I see frequently. So just pulling up Thighdoc's thoughts on this. ThighdOc says that he's hoping that it's nothing, but the pelvic screams a little more of a chronic issue than sort of a one-off issue. And that stood out to me just because it kind of correlates back to Spencer Brown's back injury, where that's starting to seem more of a chronic thing than something that's kind of just popping up out of nowhere. And then obviously Dalton Kincaid with the knee. Chronic can be, when I think chronic, I think of constant. I don't know if we can go to that length yet, just because it's not like this has been happening with Dalton Kincaid since he was drafted. But of course, at the end of last year, when you suffer that injury, things seem good going into this year. And now you have the knee brace back on and you're not practicing. It's starting to seem like more of a recurring theme than not. This has not been something that has been a problem with Tyler Bass up until now. The concern I have with Tyler Bass and the injury is just that if you go down, I mean, the trust you have in a kicker is such a crucial part of this game. It's so often overlooked. And despite people having questions about Tyler Bass from time to time, because he might not be any given week a Justin Tucker or an Adam Vinatieri, he was damn good last year, and you'd much rather have him than someone off the street. And you think about the injury here, and it might not be a massive problem right now, but you get into the season, if this is chronic, if this continues to bother him more and more, you get into week 9, week 10, and all of a sudden T Bass can't go, and you're trotting out someone random, someone you have no idea what they're bringing to the table. You don't necessarily trust just because you haven't had the ability to gain that trust. He's got to go out in a massive situation. Is he expected to make it coming off the street? You'd much rather have Tyler Bass. And the kicking aspect of any given game is probably one of the more overlooked aspects of any team. The amount of games decided by the leg of a kicker are more than you'd think. And you saw Tyler Bass last year swing his leg and help the Buffalo Bills to several victories last year. None more than the Miami Dolphins game I mentioned, where he nails that 61-yarder at the end. So we'll keep an eye on all of this, of course. It just like anything this time of year, and this is the benefit and the disadvantage of training camp and the offseason in general. We're so invested in the NFL, we're so invested in the Bills, that any little thing that happens, we're going to overanalyze it, whether good or bad. So, when you see, which we'll talk about here in a second, Christian Benford dominating, or Keon Coleman showing flashes, right? A couple of these draft picks, TJ Sanders looking great. We're going to overanalyze the hell out of that in a good way. Man, could this be the year that the Bills' defensive line really is a difference maker? Man, could the Bills' secondary really be special with Maxwell Harrison, the first-round draft pick, coming in to join Christian Benford, who's been phenomenal? Could Keon Coleman become that X factor he was drafted to be just a season ago? We're going to talk about all that great stuff. But in addition to overanalyzing the good things, you also overanalyze the bad things. And this time of year, it's just tough to truly wrap your arms around what's an issue, what's real, what's a positive, what isn't. It's just a lot of speculation right now both ways, right? I mean, you hear one day Keon Coleman, oh, he can't catch the ball. And then the next day, oh, Keon Coleman might be the best player out on the offense today. It's practice. I've never had a problem with guys making mistakes in practice. This is why when I see people open up their show on a national stage with somebody in training camp, some quarterback in training camp throwing a pick six or throwing a couple of interceptions in a row, I don't care about any of that at all. Josh Allen's thrown a handful of interceptions this training camp. Good. Throw more of them, please. Does two things, in my opinion. Allows him to figure out the windows, get that out of the way now, and it builds up the confidence for this defense, who could use all the confidence in the world going into this upcoming season. The guy threw 6 interceptions last year. And he's had 40 touchdowns 5 consecutive years. I have no concern about stuff like that. Now, with the injuries, it's a different situation. The only thing is how serious are these injuries? I mean, you have so many guys on this list, but once again, I would have to imagine if this was week 3 of the NFL season and these same injuries were sustained, how many guys on that list would be playing this upcoming week? I would venture to say a good amount of them. Because once again, every single week in this league, every guy's got something banged up on him. Just a matter of whether or not it's egregious enough to have him miss time. So a lot to keep an eye on, though, certainly. And maybe we'll get a look underneath the hood to an even deeper degree than usual because of Hard Knocks kicking off next week on August 5th. We'll be able to take a look at maybe the inside of the training room here, get a better idea surrounding some of these guys from a personal level. Maybe they'll talk about it. We'll see. Who knows? But once again, that list of guys who did not practice today: Dorian Williams, Tyrell Shavers, Cedric Van Granger, Curtis Samuel, Terrell Bernard, Elijah Moore, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, T-Bass, Caden Prather, and Spencer Brown. The Prather, Samuel, and Bernard grouping there, those were all hamstrings, according to Sal Capaccio. Elijah Moore, just general soreness. See, there's a perfect example. General soreness, I would imagine Elijah Moore would be playing this week if it were a game. Right. Knox was activated. I know he missed time last week. He was activated after that non-football injury, but he just didn't suit up yet today. So perhaps more caution than anything else. You just want to keep an eye on the guys who have had lingering issues in the same area, and that is Dalton Kincaid and Spencer Brown. I really hope Dalton Kincaid can figure it out, though. Just don't want anything in the way of him having an opportunity this year to try to take that next step. It's already going into year 3 here, and we feel as though he's been working his way up to trying and getting in position to have a breakout season. And you just don't want anything in the way of that. So we'll see. Week 1 especially just can't afford to have anybody missing. I mean, you don't want anybody missing at any given week, but week 1 in particular, with how big of a game that is, I mean, that's the benefit and the disadvantage of starting a season off in that type of environment. That game, even though it's week 1, it's just going to be so big in the grand scheme of things. I really do think that the end of the year will come around and we will look back at week 1 when looking at the difference in the 1 seed or the 3 or 4 seed and look at that game and see and realize how much of an impact it wound up having on the seeding. I really do think it's going to come down to that because, of course, right now the AFC seems to be coming down to the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens, as it has the last several years. But that week 1 game in particular, when factoring in the Buffalo Bills schedule, if you can win week 1, the road is paved for you to rattle off W's until about Halloween. And if you can do that while having that massive seed swinging game in your pocket week 1, God knows how much of a difference that's going to end up making. All of these games, too, at home that feel like they're going to be such massive difference makers. So hopefully we see an uptick in progression for some of these injuries. But of course, the guys that are going to be relied upon the most, Spencer Brown, Dalton Kincaid, the two that come to mind on the offensive side of the ball that have had those lingering issues. Hopefully those get resolved before the season and don't end up becoming a nagging issue. Now, here's the other thing, too, when it comes to these Bills. Obviously, you want the 1 seed, and in order to do that, the Bills are probably going to have to win 14 or 15 games. It's the reality of the situation. The Buffalo Bills, a season ago, win 13 games, and it's not good enough for the 1 seed, right? I mean, in order to get that 1 seed, especially in the AFC, you're probably going to have 14 wins minimum. I mean, even last year, 14 wins wouldn't have gotten it done for Buffalo. The Kansas City Chiefs had 15, and one of those losses was a throwaway game in the final week of the year where they sat everybody against Denver and got housed. I mean, in reality, they probably could have had 16 wins if they wanted to. Their only legitimate loss came to Buffalo in Buffalo at the midway point of the year. I mean, it's almost like the old days of college football, really. If you remember pre-college football playoff, if you lost a game, you were kind of screwed. If you lost 2, you could forget it. I'm not saying you can't lose a couple games. The Bills are going to have, I would imagine, a decent threshold that they can kind of bounce within to win the AFC East. But if we're talking about getting that 1 seed, and I really do think that could be a massive difference for Buffalo that they have yet to have, a benefit and advantage they have yet to experience with Josh Allen, Sean McDermott. If we're talking about wanting to take advantage of this schedule that seems to be lighter than usual, take advantage of a lesser AFC East, especially in comparison to some of these other divisions in the conference, take advantage of the home games that you have that are against the top of the conference, take advantage of the last season at the Ralph, take advantage of what feels to be an upgraded roster in just about every area. You're going to have to rattle off 14, 15 wins. And if you can start off week 1 getting that W against Baltimore, I think it does so much. Not only does it get you that massive win that could end up being just a 1-game difference between the 1 seed and God knows what else, but I think the confidence that instills in you week 1 going into a bulk share of that schedule there, that the Bills are going to be massive favorites in literally every single game up until October. I just think it can't be overstated. So hopefully all of these guys are getting this out of the way now, resting up currently in a moment in which it's not the end of the world if you miss a practice. But certainly something we're going to be keeping an eye on throughout the rest of the month and heading into the regular season, which is I think 40 some days away from today. So we'll see. Shout out to everybody in here on a Monday night. Cody Ben's in the building. Koala, Signified, Roger, Mark, Daniel, Slick, Rico is hanging out. Jim, Matt, all you guys hanging out here on a Monday night. So the pads were on. Pads were officially on. No lowers, but the uppers. They were still hitting, so you don't have the pants on. No hits below the waist, but had the pads on today. We're knocking it around a bit. You love to see it. That's when it starts to feel like football is officially back. And that was the case today. Buffalo Bills did have the pads on, and we now have a decent sample size. We're 5 practices in here, and there seems to be some names that are standing out above the rest. And they're names that you just love to hear because it feels like those were the names that you were hoping to hear. And those are the names that if they are playing as well in the regular season and beyond as they seem to be playing early on here in the training camp period, then, I mean, that could absolutely be crucial for the Buffalo Bills mission in 2025. Teron Johnson was talking today. Teron Johnson said that he thinks that Christian Benford is the best corner in the entire NFL. And it just feels like every single day throughout the Buffalo Bills training camp here the last week or so, we've been hearing nothing but how Christian Benford is one of the best players out on the field for the Buffalo Bills defense. The Bills just draft Maxwell Hairston in the first round, trying to shore up that corner position. But they get Christian Benford under contract this offseason, does Brandon Beane. You felt great about what he brought to the table last year. You're feeling even better about what he's going to be bringing to the table this upcoming year. The praise that Christian Benford seems to be generating, not only from within his own team, but from the outside as well, those covering the team, those with boots on the ground, watching this defense on a day-to-day basis. It seems to be the general takeaway is Christian Benford is dominant, whether it be in 11-on-11 or one-on-one situations. Christian Benford has seemed to shine each and every practice. And we talk about this Bills defense and how necessary it is for them to take a step forward this upcoming year in order for them to kind of be a solution for the Bills in the biggest moments. And we've talked about the fact that they don't have to turn into the 85 Bears or the early 2000s Ravens or the Legion of Boom. They just don't need to be that. With as good as Josh Allen is, with as good as this offense has been, the Bills don't need generational defense and offense combined in order to go the distance. It just feels like with the offense they have and the quarterback play they have, a marginal to medium-sized advancement on the defensive side of the ball really does feel like it could just end up being the ultimate difference. And when we're talking about a guy like Christian Benford playing out of his mind early on here and has really shown us in game settings already how great he can be, you factor in what else you're adding back there. Taylor Rapp has looked phenomenal. Cole Bishop, a guy the Bills are going to be relying on for the foreseeable future here. You talk about Maxwell Hairston and that blazing speed. He continues to make plays. And you factor in, of course, that a guy like Maxwell Hairston, he's going to have his growing pains. There's going to be moments where you're like scratching your head saying, that's a rookie moment right there, gets burned here, allows a catch or a touchdown here. But we see the capabilities there. We see the unteachable traits that Maxwell Hairston's bringing to this defense, a speed in which they've never had before. We've already seen him display it during training camp here, moments where it feels like he's beat on a route until he isn't. He's there, he's breaking up the pass. But with Christian Benford being as good as he's been and continuing to grow and continuing to be better than ever, that's only going to be beneficial for a guy like Maxwell Hairston. Not only is it beneficial for the Bills defense in totality, not only are they going to be better off because of the play he's bringing, but Maxwell Hairston is, of course, going to be better. Even Tre'Davious White, it feels like right now this cornerback position, you're feeling good about it. You know, last year you weren't feeling great at all. Now you have Christian Benford, Taron Johnson saying he's one of the best. He's saying he's the best corner in the league. Tre'Davious White looks like he's rejuvenated. Obviously, the injury history he's had bounced around the league since leaving Buffalo. He looks like he's back to playing some of the best football he has in years, right? And then Maxwell Hairston with the potential there, the expectation, and the intangibles that feels like if they all come together, he could be something special. You're feeling real good there. Then you talk about Taylor Rapp. He's been looking phenomenal. Not only did he look great last year on the field for these Bills, he looks great again in training camp. Numerous interceptions throughout the 5 sessions here through Buffalo Bills training camp, a week and a half in. Cole Bishop, I think all of us are very excited to see what he brings to the table now that he has an opportunity to go out there and prove his worth to the team being fully healthy going into 2025. So love to see Christian Benford being a name that is continuously mentioned almost every practice, if not every practice here through the first week of Bills training camp. And what's great about this is that the Bills just extended Christian Benford, right? The Bills just extended Christian Benford this offseason, 4-year deal worth $76 million. You have Taron Johnson saying he thinks Christian Benford is the best corner in the league. And through the first 5 practices for the Buffalo Bills, all you've heard is how great Christian Benford has looked. And the thing is Christian Benford is not a household name. The Bills have often found themselves in this situation. And I saw a little bit of it on Twitter today, actually, where once again, the Bills continuously have guys that are so damn good, but they're just not limelight guys. They're not cover of a magazine type guys. And because of that, a lot of people outside of the Bills fan base don't know them as well as they know the big names in the sport at each position. And the best example, of course, and if we're talking about contracts as of recently here, is Sauce Gardner in comparison to Christian Benford. This is where, people get upset. I know when it comes around towards the end of the year, people get upset that the Bills don't have as many all-pros as other teams. People get upset that the guys that are cornerstones to this team don't get the recognition that they deserve. The reality is that's nothing but a benefit to Buffalo, because Sauce Gardner is the biggest name, or one of the biggest names in the sport at the position. He just signed a contract this offseason as well. 4 years, just like Christian Benford did. Brandon Beane gets Christian Benford for 4 years, $76 million. The Jets signed Sauce Gardner to a 4-year, $120 million contract. I mean, that's nearly double the contract. Is Sauce Gardner double the talent that Christian Benford is? I don't think so. The benefit to having guys that are damn good, but they're not necessarily your the first thought that you have if you're just a general NFL fan when thinking of position to position, it's this right here. It's this. Because you're looking early on here into camp, Christian Benford looks better than anybody on the defensive side of the ball. He just signed a contract, a 4-year extension with Buffalo, where it's really pennies on the dollar compared to what some of these other guys are making, yet the play on the field certainly isn't lacking in comparison to some of the higher end paid guys in the NFL. So you just absolutely love to see it. And when you do see a contract extension for any player, you're always wondering whether or not you're going to continue to get the level of play that earned them that contract. And for the Bills to have signed Benford this offseason and then immediately go into training camp and see that he looks better than ever, you couldn't be happier about it. You've seen in the past, of course, it could go one of two ways. It always does. You re-sign a guy to an extension. You pay him, right? And from there, it doesn't end up panning out, right? It doesn't end up kind of turning into what you hoped it would when you inked that deal. But for the money spent in comparison to what's being spent around the league, the value you're getting on that money, terrific. So really excited about what Christian Benford's been showing, because that's the one area on the Bills defense, that and the defensive line. Those are the two areas, rather, but it's one of those two areas that are going to end up being the make or break units for this team. They can shore up the back end, and if they can get after the quarterback, this Bills defense becomes exactly what we were hoping it could be for Josh Allen. Really the Robin to the Josh Allen offense's Batman. That's what we're really hoping that this Bills defense can become. So loving to see it from Christian Benford and kind of how that stems throughout the rest of the team, because you've been seeing that Tre'Davious White has looked real good. You've been seeing that Maxwell Harrison has had his flashes as well, learning underneath the Benford and Tre'Davious White. And then at the safety position, too, I think you're more optimistic than you've been in a while. You're more optimistic right now. This is as optimistic about the safety position as you've probably been since the departure of Poyer and Hyde. Because you know what you have in Rapp. You're excited about that. Cole Bishop's finally healthy. And you know that Damar Hamlin had a pretty good year last year, too. And he's back as well. So depth, in addition to veteran leadership and young guys looking to really make an impact, really make their mark on this team. This Bills defense really has a healthy combination of all of that, which has you feeling real confident. One of the guys from the rookie draft class that seems to be making splashes, making headlines, TJ Sanders. And you love to see that. That's who the Bills invest their second-round draft pick in. And obviously, Brandon Beane has been investing assets routinely to try and figure out a way for this Bills defensive line to finally take a step forward and become a threat, really become a difference maker for this team. If you talk about the NFL and what the most pivotal units of any team are, it's quarterback, offensive line, and defensive line. Bills have the quarterback figured out. They have the offensive line figured out. They have been routinely trying to figure out the D line. They've shown flashes here and there. They've had guys, have their moments, but it hasn't been solidified. And they really went all in this draft and in addition to the offseason as well in free agency, trying to finally get that solution this upcoming year that they've been seeking for some time. And you're seeing multiple guys really start to stand out, showing flashes, showing that they could be major impacts in 2025. TJ Sanders seems to be one of those names that I keep hearing about when it comes to each and every individual practice here. You know what's great is that the defense in general seems to be what I hear about the most. Now, I don't know if that's because everybody seems to be overanalyzing the defense because that is the area on the team that everybody's going to be focused on the most, just because we are pretty well aware of what this offense is and our expectations aren't changing all that drastically. We're keeping an eye on Josh Palmer, Elijah Moore. What are they bringing to the table? How is that different from last year? We're keeping an eye on Keon Coleman. Is he going to really rise to the occasion in year 2? We're keeping an eye on Dalton Kincaid for the same reasons going into year 3. But for the most part, with Josh Allen, we are well aware that this offense, whether it declines minorly from last year or it takes a marginal increase from last year, stays the same. It's one of the best in the league. The expectations are pretty solidified for the Bills offense. The jury's out almost completely on this Bills defense. It really is. I mean, there's so many new bodies on this side of the ball that I think that's why you have so many people, including myself, hyper-focused on that side of the ball during training camp here, hyper-focused on individuals and how they're all going to come together to allow this defense to finally get to a point where we're feeling real good about it throughout the duration of the year, but in particular and most importantly, in the postseason. So you're hearing that TJ Sanders looks great. You're hearing Joey Bosa flashing, right? We've seen the moments throughout training camp here where Deion Walker has had his moments, had his time to shine. And I've also seen, just one-off, two-off clips of Deion Walker around his fellow teammates. The size is unbelievable. Rico and I talked about this the other night. The Bills, their size has been questioned from time to time. The size that they have on the offensive line, I think, is up there right now. It really is. It feels like they do have just big bodies up there. I talked about, Edwards at guard, just how big he is. Spencer Brown, one of the biggest human beings you could find. Deion Dawkins, we know how great he is. But now you're looking on the D side of the ball, too. And a guy like Deion Walker really looking the part. And we've seen throughout the first 5 practices here, his name come up a decent amount, too. But TJ Sanders seems to be the one name that I've seen come up the most out of this rookie draft class. Joey Bosa seemed to have a great day today in particular. We know what Joey Bosa has. It's a matter of staying healthy, and it's a matter of staying healthy throughout the duration of the season, being healthy at the end of the season, more importantly than anything. In the 5th practice today, the big takeaway defensively, other than the things that we've kind of seen from day to day, like I mentioned, Christian Benford looking great, TJ Sanders looking great, the defensive line really getting after it, which you just love to hear. If there's one thing you wanted to hear this training camp, it would be that. But fan favorite and one of the best in the entire league when he's playing at his top caliber, Matt Milano. Matt Milano's 31st birthday was this Monday, of course, today, and he had a hell of a day at practice, according to those who were there watching it all go down. Matt Milano flying all around the field, looking like he's back to that all-pro form. And we obviously know with Matt Milano, it all just comes down to the injuries, really. I mean, when he's healthy and out on the field, it just doesn't get a whole hell of a lot better. And we haven't had the privilege of having him and Terrell Bernard out there for a duration of a full season. We've often wondered what that would look like, how great that would be. Now, we know Terrell Bernard has been banged up as well. He missed practice today, too. And it's one of those positions when you lead the team in tackles routinely, when you're just constantly hitting guys play in and play out, the expectation of the position is understood. But the difference is Matt Milano, when he is healthy, he's one of the better linebackers in football. And he hasn't been fully healthy for some time. And you're just hoping that you can get the most out of him at 31 years old. And by getting the most out of him, you're just hoping that that means he's healthy. So I love seeing the moments when he's really stepping up because it reminds you of what Matt Milano is. It reminds you who he's been for this team when he's out there. And from what I could tell today, based on those watching practice and reporting back on what they saw, he had one heck of a day out there on the D side of the ball on his 31st birthday. So you can only hope you continue to see that from Matt Milano. Rico and I were talking about this the other day, but just back to this defense. When you rattle off these names, as I talk about, so-and-so here, so-and-so there is just a lot of names on this D that you're excited about this year. You just feel good talking about the defense right now. Just rattling off all these names. Maxwell Hairston, Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard, Matt Milano, Cole Bishop, Taylor Rapp, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson, Joey Bosa. You can't help but sit here and just kind of rattle off these names and be like, yeah, I'm feeling that, man. I am feeling that. And you're kind of getting a good exposure to it right now. You're feeling good about it right now. And as Jim's kind of saying here, a lot of the names too, the names you're rattling off here, they're brand new. I mean, these are guys that if they end up becoming staples of this team, they're going to be staples for the next decade. Feels like the Bills have been trying as of late to be reliant on guys that you're not sure are going to be around for the foreseeable future because, they're veterans in the league. They weren't necessarily drafted by the team, or they weren't brought into the team at a stage in their career where you're confident in them being around for the long haul. I mean, right now, this is what the Bills have going for them. So many of these guys, when you draft that many players on that side of the ball in one draft class, the odds of a few of these guys at the minimum being major impacts on the team goes way up. You took far more chances on that side of the ball. And because of that, the more chances you have, the better opportunity you have for a couple of those guys to really become studs. Right? But when you think about this year and beyond, in order for the Bills to remain within the window in which they've been in for the last couple of seasons, they're going to have sustained impact coming up here. I mean, they've done a terrific job in kind of working through the ever-changing rosters that every team seems to be dealing with on a year-in, year-out basis. And last year was the perfect example of being able to overcome what nobody thought they could, the departures on the offensive side of the ball. But when you think about who they've lost over the last handful of years, right? You lose Tremaine Edmonds, a first-round draft pick. You lose Tre'Davious White, who was an all-pro. You lose Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, who were potentially the best safety tandem in the league for several seasons. You lose your starting center. You lose your X factor at wide receiver. You lose your wide receiver, too. The Bills haven't missed a beat, right? They haven't. And now they've gone from being able to overcome that to now entering into that next stage where you go from just overcoming it to rebuilding the next wave that you're not going to have to worry about overcoming for some time now, right? If Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid rise to the occasion in year two, you're not going to have to worry about, especially when you factor in Khalil Shakir already being under contract and what he's brought. You're not going to have to worry about Josh Allen's weapons. If James Cook has another great year, hopefully Brandon Beane can work something out with him. You're not going to have to worry about the run game. Your offensive line, you're feeling great about that. You're not going to have to worry about that. It's the defensive side of things, or this next wave here. You're hoping that not only do you get great impact this year, but you're not going to have to worry about it year after year like it's felt we have. With the injuries, with the aging of players, with guys leaving, you felt every year a little bit uneasy about what the defense is bringing to the table. I think you feel as good right now about this defense in an offseason as you have really since Josh Allen's been the quarterback of this team, or at the very least within this window where the Bills are an unquestionable top 5 team in the NFL. And I know the last several episodes here, it feels like the defense has been the priority here, the main topic of conversation. But I told you, this is what it's going to be for me this year until, I'm proven one way or the other. I mean, really, this is just unless the offense goes nuclear and averages 40 points a game, or they take a massive step back and they're averaging 20 points a game and they're struggling. We go into every week expecting a very similar outcome for the Bills offense. It's the defense that we're going to be honed in on early and often until we get a good idea of what they are. And so the fact that we're getting a good idea in training camp here of these new guys and just the defense in general showing up, looking good, standing out, individual guys flashing, really looking great. It gets you excited about that potential. You were already excited about the potential. There was no way you couldn't be. But when you're hearing these guys being talked about real positively, really standing out, really starting to showcase themselves early here, it further fuels that excitement for the upcoming season and potentially what you can expect from a defense that is primed to take a step forward, that is primed to be better in just about every single way. All right, speaking of better, Josh Allen is considered to be better than every quarterback in the NFL, not named Lamar Jackson, when it comes to the virtual realm of the NFL. The 99 overall club was announced on Monday morning, the prestigious honor that very few players in the NFL get, courtesy of EA Sports. Every year it is announced that there are, every year the players that are considered to be a 99 overall in the game are announced, and it's an honor. It's a badge of honor. And over the last several years in particular, it's really become a thing. It wasn't always like this. And then all of a sudden they really started to make it it's almost like winning an award in a way. You get honored for it. And to my knowledge, there's never been a Buffalo Bills player in Madden that has been honored with a 99 overall rating in the game. And much like everything else with Josh Allen, that, of course, has changed as well. Going throughout my life, no playoff appearances, no playoff wins, obviously no AFC championship appearances, no MVP, no reliable core. Everything changes. Everything has changed and continues to change with Josh Allen. And this is one more thing that you can add to a calendar year here that has truly been incredible for Josh Allen. He continues to add another feather in the cap all the time. This is one more. Josh Allen was donned with a diamond necklace that has the number 99 on it, and that is what all 7 players received that received the 99 overall rating from EA Sports. There were only 2 quarterbacks that were considered to be a 99, and they were Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who just so happened to be the 2 quarterbacks down to the wire last year for the MVP, with Josh Allen taking it narrowly to win his first ever MVP. Other guys in the fold: Justin Jefferson, Myles Garrett, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase. With the amount of players in the league, with the amount of notable players in the league, there were only 7 who were considered to be 99 overall, Josh Allen being one of them. And I know it's just a video game and whatever, who cares? But it's just one more thing that you love to see. You got to love it. Just one more reminder of who you have. One more reminder of how great Josh Allen is, and one more thing that you can experience that you never had an opportunity to experience prior to Josh Allen, and really you never had even a thought of experiencing it because of the idea of it happening was just so distant that you couldn't even fantasize about it. So many of these things. Winning an MVP, being a Super Bowl caliber team, consistently winning the division, making the playoffs, having a quarterback that is considered to be one of the best athletes in professional sports. 99 overall rating in Madden in the modern day is the equivalent of, it's funny, with as irrelevant as the Pro Bowl has become, it almost feels like this is the new, you can almost add this to the Hall of Fame resume, as hilarious as that sounds, with as irrelevant as the Pro Bowl has become over the years, it almost means more in the given era here. It almost means more in the modern era to have the 99 overall rating in Madden on your Hall of Fame resume. I'm not even kidding you either, because it's just so rare. It's so few and far between. And those who do receive the 99, they're unquestionably the best players in the NFL at their sport. Now, the big drama right now is that Patrick Mahomes did not get a 99 this year. He's been 99 the last several seasons, so it's not like he hasn't been there. But Patrick Mahomes did not have a great year last year by his standard. It wasn't the best year for Patrick Mahomes, and I know that's crazy because they still went to the Super Bowl. He made his, sixth consecutive? I mean, I can't even keep track anymore. He's gone to the AFC Championship every single year he's been a starter. So even in his down year, it was still better than any year that any other fan base could expect to have. But he wasn't really in the running at all last year at any point for the MVP. He was never considered to be playing the best at the position last year. And that's kind of reflected in these ratings this year. And I think Patrick Mahomes has been riding on the momentum he's built for himself really since he's come into the league. And it kind of stopped short this year with Allen and Lamar getting the honors. And, last year, Lamar and Allen were the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Joe Burrow was right there, too. And it's unfortunate. Joe Burrow really has been a victim of the incompetence surrounding him. It's just unfortunate, really. I mean, if you're a Bengals fan, I watched that quarterback series. Joe Burrow is unbelievable. He's incredible. And he is undoubtedly one of the best in the sport right now. Ja'Marr Chase is the best in the sport right now. That defense just let him down at every turn. It did. The Bengals were rattling off 30 points on a weekly basis. Joe Burrow was putting up prolific numbers every single week. It felt like he was putting up 300 plus and multiple scores every single week. Unfortunately, right now, he is a victim of his surroundings. I think if the Bengals were to have made the postseason last year and their defense was even mediocre, maybe Joe Burrow is an MVP finalist or maybe even wins it. Honestly, he had the numbers last year. If you flipped the Bills record and the Bengals record last year, it's probably Joe Burrow's award. That's how great he was last year. But we all know the four best quarterbacks, regardless of what order you want to put them in. It's Allen, it's Lamar, it's Mahomes, it's Burrow. But the only two to receive that 99 overall were Allen and Lamar. And, I see a PWP fan coming in saying it's the Mahomes standard. And really, Mahomes is almost his own worst enemy at this point. It's crazy. With as great as Mahomes has been, when you don't live up to that greatness at every turn, it's almost like you're considered to be falling off. Patrick Mahomes falling off is losing in the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl. That is falling off for Patrick Mahomes. Like, when you think about it, last year, did it ever at any point feel like Patrick Mahomes was great? No, not really, but it doesn't matter. And much like Joe Burrow has seemingly been a victim of things that he can't control on his own team, and that kind of skewing the public perception of him at any given time. Patrick Mahomes has been so prolific for so long that when it's not the greatest that we've ever seen every week, you can't help but say, I don't know about the Chiefs. I don't know about Mahomes. Just doesn't look that great. But then again, you fast forward and there he is. He's playing in February yet again. I'm dying to see, speaking of the Chiefs, I am genuinely curious what happens this year. I think it only goes one of two ways. Because last year, all you heard was, this is the worst 15-2 team I've ever seen. This offense can't do anything right, yet they're winning every single week. These guys got a horseshoe all the way up their butt. These guys get lucky every week. They're getting helped here and there, whatever. Regardless, yeah, maybe you make that argument. But then again, every year prior to that, they were doing the same thing, just in different ways. But then you get to the Super Bowl, and we've really never seen them get throttled quite like that. We did against the Brady-led Bucs, but it felt like it was still earlier on in Mahomes' career. They weren't necessarily the Chiefs that we know now yet. They were well on their way there. and they were still probably the best team in the league. But they were going into a third straight championship appearance last year with the opportunity to do what no one had ever done, and that was win all 3 in a row. And they got destroyed. I mean, just dismantled at every turn in that game. Embarrassed, frankly. And I really do think it only goes one of two ways. I think coming into this upcoming year here, the Chiefs have a noticeable decline, not just on the play in the field, but in the record column. I mean, I really do think it either is a noticeable decline in terms of record, or they're as good as they've ever been again. And I'm dying to see how this all affects Patrick Mahomes. You know, in knowing the type of competitor that he is, I don't know about you guys. I saw him shave his head. Like, he's got a whole new haircut now. And it gave me the vibe of like he's looking to restart everything here, revamp the narrative. Kind of scared me a little bit. I know it's just a haircut, but it felt like he's looking to reset the narrative and get a fresh start, which is crazy because you wouldn't think somebody who's been to 5 Super Bowls and an AFC championship every single year he's been a starter would need a restart. But then again, that's just the caliber in which he and the Chiefs have been at. So I don't know about you guys, but to me, I only see it going one of two ways. I don't see them just kind of backing into a Super Bowl again, where it looks like I can't imagine that this coming year again, they're winning games by a blocked punt again, or a pass interference here, or someone else on the other team makes a mistake here. I just don't see it. I think either they're dominating again to the point where you're like, oh my God. I mean, you can't even argue they're getting lucky. They're just rolling. Or maybe some of that luck resets and some of the moments that went their way a season ago just don't go their way this upcoming year. And it starts to pile up, and all of a sudden you blink and the record just is not nearly close enough to what you expect from the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what I think. And I'm dying to see, because I think that it has just as much of a chance to go either way. Really, I do. I just can't help but think that in 2025, the Chiefs either like spike upward to where they're back as the unquestionable best team in the league, or there's a noticeable downward trend where you're watching every week and you're thinking to yourself, man, what's going on here? Because not only are they not playing great, but they're not winning. Last year, any given week, really, throughout the whole season, you could have just been like, man, these guys aren't playing great. But what the hell did that matter? They were winning no matter what. Playing great or not, like, they just won. And there's nothing that matters in this league other than the clock striking 0 and you having more points than the other team. And they did that every single week, other than the Bills game, a meaningless Denver game, in a game in which they sat all their starters, and the Super Bowl. And that was considered to be a bad year for them. What does the rebound look like? Because they were embarrassed. And not only were they embarrassed, but the embarrassment came off of a year where they were not talked about at all. Like a 15-2 team. Nobody thought the Chiefs were as good as their record indicated. And I know a lot of that has to do with Chiefs fatigue. I know a lot of that has to do with people just being sick and tired of them. But if you've watched them throughout Mahomes' run here, they did not look good as good last year as they have. But it didn't matter. Will it matter this year? Or will they look significantly better? And it's unquestionable that they are back to what everybody knows them as, and they look as though they're as good as their record indicates. We shall see. Super chat coming in from Lucas Ryder. Blue and red scrimmage on Friday, and the Killers in Canandaigua on Saturday. Wow, that's right. Killers playing CMAC on Saturday. I'll be at both. Do we think any Bills will be there? Wow, that's a great question. So how far is CMAC from Buffalo? Probably, it's deeper into Rochester, so probably 2 some hours. I don't know, maybe, probably. Better question is, do we think any of the Killers will be at the Blue-Red game on Friday? That's the better question. Because as we know, the Killers have become the quasi ban for the Bills the last year, with their anthem, Mr. Brightside, being the anthem of the Bills. So that's an interesting point. I didn't even realize that. Enjoy the show, by the way. The Killers are great. CMAC's an awesome venue. I've been there a bunch of times. So that'll be fun. Going to both, by the way. Great weekend ahead of you, Lucas. That's going to be fun. I love it. Let's see. Yeah, Jeremy's saying, they'll probably be like 12-5 this time, but still make the Super Bowl, or 13-4. I know. This is why, to me, with the Bills schedule being what it is, I think you got to win 14 to get the 1. You look at their schedule, it's tough to not have them winning 14 of those 17 games. It just is. I mean, you know me, I try to be as little of a homer as possible, and I try to be subjective, especially when I'm predicting games. But I went through that schedule, and I did have them losing to Baltimore week 1. But then I didn't really have them losing again until the final week of the year, where I just anticipate them resting their starters. And it's not because I went into doing my predictions with an idea that they were going to be 15-2, and that would be that regardless of which game they win or lose, or regardless of who they play. I just was going through the list of games, and I'm like, I can't find more than 2 losses here unless something out of the ordinary happens or something tragic happens. I couldn't bring myself to do it. And I mean, really, it just feels like the absolute floor for this team this year is like 12-5 floor. I do think the ceiling's 15-2. But a lot of things have to go your way in order to get to a record like that. We know that. Things have to go your way beyond being a great football team. You got to stay healthy, right? You got to have luck on your side in terms of the injury bug, which the Bills have unfortunately not had. Not turning the ball over goes a long way, like it did last year. Not getting sacked goes a long way. Turning the ball over on the defensive side of the ball goes a massive way, massively long way. They've been doing that routinely each and every year. But what also goes a long way is, having the division being what it is currently. Having your non-conference games come against the Saints and the Panthers and the Falcons. I mean, you could have drawn it's like you could be playing really, you think about it, you could have drawn any other NFC division. They lucked out in that regard. And I know they have no control over that. It's just, so many people think that, like, when they see the Bills schedule and then they see like the Giants schedule, and they're like, how the hell do the Bills, coming off a 13-4 record and an AFC championship appearance, have nearly the easiest schedule in the league? Meanwhile, the Giants are coming off one of their worst seasons in the history of their franchise's existence, and they have the hardest schedule in the league. Well, it's just unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles, or fortunately the way it crumbles. It's unfortunate as hell for the Giants. Very fortunate for Buffalo, and it's not always fortunate. And I know things could change. All of a sudden, everybody thinks the Saints are going to be the worst team in the league. All of a sudden, Tyler Shough comes out there and he's the next Peyton Manning. I have no idea. We know things change. But as of right now, we sit here July 28th. We look at that schedule, and we all are in unanimous agreement that it is favorable for Buffalo. Richie coming in. Richie saying, law of averages says Chiefs will downfall soon. I mean, they have 3 chips, nothing to be upset about. It's not so much Chiefs fatigue as it is boring. And you're not wrong there. They were not fun to watch last year. They were not fun to watch. I mean, I'm sure it was fun if you're a Chiefs fan winning every week, but I wonder if they'd even tell you it was boring ball. And again, I mean, I wouldn't care if the Bills played the most boring football on a weekly basis. If it led to them getting to a Super Bowl, I wouldn't care. But you're not wrong there, Richie. The Chiefs' fatigue, I think it stemmed from a couple of things, and one of which last year was them being boring. It's harder to have frustration in watching them when they're fun to watch. I mean, when they had Tyreek Hill, it was just so fun to watch. And they're still must-see TV. You're not going to not watch them when they're on. They're the best team in the sport in terms of what they've accomplished. I think roster-wise right now, the Eagles are a sizably better team than anybody else in the league right now. Personally, I think that. But it goes without saying, the Chiefs, in terms of what they've achieved, they're one of the two modern day dynasties that I've watched in my lifetime. The problem was last year is that they were still dynastic, and they were better than ever record wise. And on a weekly basis, it was just watching it. You would never have thought that at all. I mean, if you went back to like the 80s and didn't have the scoreboard on the television broadcast, and you just jumped into any given game and watched it for a half an hour, you wouldn't think the Chiefs were winning on a routine basis. So you're right. I mean, there's so much that goes into the fatigue. Nothing more so than the success they've had. I mean, don't get it twisted. The Chiefs' fatigue, 90% of it is the fact that they are just in the AFC Championship or beyond every year. That's the majority of it. It's happened with all the dynasties. There was Warriors fatigue in the NBA. There was massive Patriots fatigue for the longest time, and no one suffered that more than us. I mean, because we had Patriots fatigue far beyond the Super Bowl appearances. The AFC East, it was just you couldn't bear it any longer. Unanimously, the 31 fan bases outside of the Kansas City fan base have just had enough of it. That's when you know you are a dynasty. That's when you know you are not only a great team, but an historic team, when everybody can't stand what's going on and what you're doing. And there's only two teams in my lifetime that have had that honor, and it's the Patriots and the Chiefs. But they were boring, no question about it. That's why I think this year it goes one of two ways. Either they lose the boring aspect of their game and they become must-see television again, and they are dominant, or they kind of continue to ride that thin line of boring football but getting out of there alive, except that thin line swings the other way a few more weekends than they would hope. And we'll see what happens from there. Weston coming in, Chiefs fan. He's saying the Chiefs treat the regular season like a giant preseason, and all that matters is the playoffs. And it's true. I mean, that's how we look at the Bills right now, even though the postseason hasn't resulted in the same success as it has the Chiefs. If you are any team considered to be one of the best teams in the league, yeah, the regular season matters, but for the most part what the regular season is going to turn into. It's going to turn into a playoff appearance at the worst, more than likely a top 4 seed guaranteed. And that's exactly what it's been for the Bills and the Chiefs. And that makes sense. It's just that last year with the Chiefs, it just felt a little bit different. And then the ending of the year was the ultimate difference, really, in how it ended and just how inferior they looked for a full 60 minutes on both sides of the ball. And I just think that with as unreal of a team as they are, and the competitive level in which that team has, Andy Reid, Mahomes, just the competitive level, the want to win, the desire to win is so strong. I just can't wait to see how they bounce back, because that was an all-timer. How are they going to bounce back? But I hear you, Weston. I mean, you can't argue against what you're saying here. They've treated the regular season like a preseason. I mean, 6 straight AFC Championship appearances, 7, is it? Once again, I continue to forget. I think it is 7. Hopefully it's not 8. Or if it's 8, hopefully, Weston, I'm sorry to say it, but hopefully it's in Buffalo this time around. And hopefully, you can still keep your streak alive of AFC Championship appearances if you'd like. But guy, we need to steal one. Caroline's in here. Spam Olive Garden. What does this mean? Olive Garden, spam Olive Garden. She wants to go to Olive Garden. Caroline's obsessed with Olive Garden. Loves Olive Garden. And ever since she's been pregnant, the Olive Garden cravings have never been higher. Is that what you want to do, Caroline? Are we going to Olive Garden on a Monday night? I don't know if you guys have been to Olive Garden recently. It's great. I love going to Olive Garden. All right, we can go, Caroline. Look at her. We can go to Olive Garden. Olive Garden, you don't think to go there often. You just don't. When you do go, because as you know, when you're there, you're family. When you're there, you're family, and nothing means more to me. That's why I go there all the time, because when I'm there, I'm family. You really feel that family element. But what they do better than anybody is the unlimited game. The soup, the salad, the breadsticks. Like they just got everybody beat in that category. In fact, they wiped the floor with everyone else in that category so hard that I actually that's all I get. I get the soup and the salad. I don't even get the pasta because by the time it comes, I can't even eat it. I'm stuffed up. So I basically just load up on the soup and the salad. I can't eat the bread, unfortunately. I wish I could. And if I could, I'd probably be putting them out of business. Sometimes I thank God that I can't eat bread. Seth's coming in here. He's saying, we can tell you like carbs, but I wish I could eat carbs. I do love carbs. I can't eat carbs, unfortunately. Celiac disease for the last 12 years. If I could eat the Olive Garden breadsticks, it would be a problem. Thank God I can't, because I would have no self-control over those. But Caroline can eat them for us, and she will, believe me. Richie coming back in here again with another super chat. Not here to say fixed, because similar was done with Pats during their time, calls at critical times, etc. It just feels like a forced narrative, and you like parody. Well, that's the beauty of the NFL. I would say no league has more parity than the NFL. It's just it hasn't resulted in different champions. It's been the Chiefs, it's been the Eagles, it's been the Niners, or at least those who are representing the given conferences. I hear what you're saying, though. I do. And I think that's why the fatigue is there. I also think some of the fatigue is forced at times, too. But when you have a team that's as great as Kansas City, it's just one of two ways. It's either you're a hater or you are a homer. I mean, that's just what it comes down to. Right. But we'll see this year. I think this is a big year for them in terms of how we view them moving forward, coming off of that loss. We could forget it as early as October, where they're back to standard form, and you forget that they got rolled in the Super Bowl. It's status quo again. It's same old. Chiefs are back, and there's no reason to expect they're not going to get back to another one. Or the first month or so could go down, and it doesn't look as good, and it's not resulting in wins like it usually has. And then, who knows from there? But like we had our Chiefs friend say in here, like Weston said, the regular season has been the preseason for these teams. And even if the Chiefs lose like 3 of 4 to start the year, are you really ready to write them off? I don't think so. I'm not writing the Chiefs off until I see them lose in a round prior to the AFC Championship. I'm not even willing to consider removing the Chiefs from the locked in position of being at worst the second place finisher in the AFC. I'm not willing to even consider that until I see it. Until they lose in the wild card or the divisional, they're in the AFC Championship to me until proven otherwise. They have their name is written in Sharpie on championship weekend going into the year until they finally give us a reason to wipe that out and write somebody else in. And Terrence is saying, you scared? I'm not scared. I'm in touch with reality. I'm in touch with reality. I mean, if I were to say anything different, I would be lying to myself. If I were to have any other narrative other than the Chiefs are likely to get back to the AFC Championship, I'd be lying to myself because I'm basing that on nothing. Right? All we know is them getting at least to that point. The worst that they've done under Mahomes is lose in overtime in the AFC Championship. It's the worst they've done. And they've gone to the AFC Championship 7 consecutive seasons. 7 consecutive seasons every single year that Mahomes has been the starter. So to say they won't again, I mean, what am I basing that on? Nothing. Literally nothing. And until I see it, I have to just assume by somehow, some way, they find themselves there again. Because last year, despite winning 15 games, didn't it feel like it was finally going to be the year they just weren't good enough to do it? And then again, yet again, they did it. Yet again, they got there. And yet again, they won it. So we'll see. Taking offense to this, by the way. I don't even know. I don't know what this means. Seth's calling me fat, but I'm telling you what, if that's the case, it is simply because of the chicken intake, I guess, more than anything. I haven't had a good carb, and I couldn't tell you how long. What I wouldn't be able to give to just have the Olive Garden breadsticks tonight. What I wouldn't give. But like, once again, like I said, if I could have them, it would be a massive problem. It would be, because I would house them down, and I would do that routinely, and then it would be a problem. I mean, I probably would. I'd probably have some major health problems right now if I could be able to eat bread. I don't know how all of you who have the ability to eat it, I don't know how you guys all have the willpower you do, because the majority of the best food out there has some sort of bread component within it, right? I mean, it's just the way it goes. And Olive Garden breadsticks, if we're talking bread, I mean, that's elite caliber for sure. All right, so that seems to be what my night's going to consist of: a trip to the Olive Garden with Caroline when she arrives home. So that's riveting. Can't wait for that. Going to be sending it to Olive Garden for what I think has to be the 5th or 6th time since Caroline has been pregnant, and I can't imagine it's going to be the last time. So that I'm going to have to go get ready to roll over to there. And with that, conclude this episode of The Smoke Break. It's an hour 20 in the books on a Monday night, fresh off of the 5th practice for these Buffalo Bills in the books at St. John Fisher for their 2025 training camp campaign. Much more coming your way this week, including the Hall of Fame game between, the Lions and the Rams, is it? Chargers and the Rams, somebody. Anyway, Hall of Fame game is on the 31st. And then the Bills have their blue-white scrimmage this weekend. And then next week, the Bills will be partaking in their own preseason game, and Hard Knocks will be back. So plenty coming your way. I'll be back with you later on in the week to talk about what we see in practice throughout the remainder of this week, and of course the scrimmage this weekend. But that's going to do it for us tonight here on The Smoke Break on a Monday night. Hour 20 in the books. Appreciate every single one of you who stopped by to spend some time, and I'll talk to you later in the week. But in the meantime, much love as always, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, and go Bills.